Hello and welcome to another episode of Codo Cinema, the podcast show where I talk about movies. I'm your host, Mark Codo, aka Codoman. Well, the month of December has arrived. You know what that means? That means it's Codo Cinema Christmas Month. That's right, folks. Codo Cinema Christmas Month is back in action. And I got some movies to talk about, whether it's Christmas movies or movies that take place around Christmas time or a mix of both. And one of the films that I want to talk about to kickstart Codo Cinema Christmas Month is the movie Elf. When it comes to Christmas movies, Elf is one of them. And now the movie itself, Elf, is a 2003 American Christmas comedy film directed by Jon Favreau, and it stars Will Ferrell as Buddy, a human raised by Santa's elves who learns about his origins and heads to New York City to meet his biological father. Now, the movie Elf features a supporting cast which includes James Caan, Zoe Deschanel, Mary Steenburgen, Edward Asner, and Bob Newhart. And of course, as I mentioned, Will Ferrell as the elf himself, Buddy the elf. And the film was released on November 7th, 2003, which is basically celebrating its 20th anniversary. So there is something right there. Like there is something right there. Like Elf is celebrating 20 years. I mean, isn't that amazing? On Prior to the film's release on November 7th of 2003, the the film became a major critical and commercial success, grossing $220 million worldwide against a $33 million budget. And of course, Will Ferrell's performance as Buddy the Elf was praised by critics and audiences alike, with many calling it one of his best performances. I mean, obviously, Will Ferrell, like, he has done a lot of comedy. He has done a lot of comedy roles, including Saturday Night Live, because Will Ferrell was also a member of Saturday Night Live as well. And he went on to do other films as well. You also had have the you also had the Anchorman movies, which features Ron Burgundy that Will Ferrell played. You also have Talladega Nights, The Ballad of Ricky Bobby, and of course you also have Step Brothers. He even played the man with the yellow hat in Curious George. He also appeared in the Barbie movie as well, and of course many other roles as well. I mean, he has appeared in many different movies, but of course one of his most famous roles is Buddy the Elf from the movie Elf, and of course, as I mentioned, the film is directed by Jon Favreau, and Jon Favreau, like he's not only a director, but he's also an actor as well. He appeared in films. He appeared in films such as Rudy, the 2003 Daredevil movie with Ben Affleck. He even appeared in the Replacements, which is a football movie, by the way, including Wolf of Wall Street. But one of his most famous roles is Happy Hogan from the Marvel Cinematic Universe, starting with the first Iron Man movie, to which Jon Favreau directed not just the first Iron Man movie, but also Iron Man 2, and directed two of the live action Disney remakes of The Jungle Book and The Lion King. He even directed Cowboys and Aliens with Daniel Craig and Harrison Ford. Plus, he was also executive producer and writer for the live action Star Wars spin-off The Mandalorian. I mean, John Favreau has done a lot of film and TV projects, and he's been going and he's been involved in a lot of projects. But Elf was one of his was while Elf is not the first film that he directed. I mean, he has directed a couple of films before Elf. So Elf wasn't the first film that he directed, but it is one of his famous films that he directed. Besides Iron Man, Elf was another film that he got involved in. Plus, he had a cameo as well. But anyway, the film itself, like the film's success, the success of the film inspired a 2010 Broadway musical, which is called Elf the Musical, including NBC's 2014 stop motion animated television special, Elf's Buddy Musical Christmas, and of course, and I'm pretty sure a couple of other things as well. But the film itself, it has been hailed by many as a modern classic and is often listed as one of the greatest Christmas movies of all time. I mean, Elf is one of the greatest Christmas movies of all time. While it's not the greatest Christmas movie, it's one of the greatest Christmas movies. It's up there with a Christmas story. It's a Wonderful Life, and a few other movies as well. Now, just to give him my brief background, I have seen this movie multiple times, like around the holidays, and it's a it's amazing. I had fun with this movie. It's a fun movie to watch around the holidays. I mean, like I said, Will Ferrell's performance as Buddy the Elf is great and funny too at the same time. And and when I just realized and just to give some background, but going behind the scenes, Will Ferrell was not the first actor to play Buddy. Chris Farley and Jim Carrey were also early candidates to play Buddy because the script for Elf was written in the 90s. So like in 1993, and Jim Carrey and Chris Farley were early candidates to play Buddy. Jim Carrey and Chris Farley were early candidates to play Buddy. Unfortunately, the screenplay underwent rewrites. So the script was rewritten multiple times, and then the whole idea, and then actually, I actually found out that the script was was much darker, and it didn't interest John Favreau. So he decided so a rewrite was in order. So there's the rewrite right there. So the film was rewritten to be more lighthearted and funny. And I'm actually glad that I'm actually glad that happened because I can't imagine how different the Elf how different the movie Elf would have been if it had a much darker tone. Like I can't imagine how different that would be. I can't imagine how different Elf would have been if it was dark. But I really enjoyed the lighthearted tone and the comedy that Will Ferrell brought in, including John Favreau. And of course, during the rewrite process, like Favreau, Fa- Favreau, John Favreau wanted to pay homage to the Rankin Bass Christmas specials, and to be honest, like I could definitely see that. The opening of the film, like especially most notably in the film's opening, like because the opening of the film, it feels like you're watching some of the Rankin Bass Christmas specials. Like Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer, Rudolph's Shiny New Year, A Year Without a Santa Claus, The Little Drummer Boy, and many other Rankin Bass Christmas specials. I mean, my goodness, like they have made some of the greatest Christmas specials throughout the uh, throughout the 60s, throughout the 60s and 70s, going into the 80s. Man, that is a different time period where some of the greatest specials come out during the holidays, and and with the movie Elf paying homage to it, that is good. That is something good. And the film makes heavy use of forced perspective to exaggerate the size of Buddy compared to all the other elves. Stop motion animation was employed for certain sequences, like most notably in the beginning, because in the beginning of the movie, it's got that going back to Rake and Bass, and I forgot to mention that. And yes, most of the Rake and Bass specials used stop motion animation. Most notably with Rudolph, Year Without Santa Claus, and a few other specials as well. But they have done but they also have done hand drawn animation as well. But Rake and Bass has also done stop motion animation too for many of their for many of their specials. And the stop motion animation was used for certain sequences for Elf, most notably in the opening, and then other parts of the film too. So and then the CGI usage was kept to a minimum due to Favreau's own preference, something that he would later note he had to fight very hard for. So so there was very little CGI, to which hit or miss at times, which, to be honest, I mean, I can understand that. I can understand that, especially when you have a character who is basically a human raised by elves up in the North Pole. So so that kind of makes so you kind of get the gist right there. So anyway, that's a that's a little bit of my background, but also a little bit of the behind the scenes, some of the behind the scenes stories. But anyway, I'm gonna break down the movie. So let's get to it. So the movie opens up. Obviously, the movie opens up with a narration from Papa Elf, who is being played by Bob Newhart, and he gives his opening monologue to how elves have three different jobs. Like one of them is basically elves working at a shoe shop. The old story where the shoe cobbler is asleep and all the elves come in to fix the shoes. I forgot what the story of that was. I know that one's based on a popular fairy tale. I forgot the name of the story, but for anybody who's listening, if you know the story of where the elves are fixing up the cobbler's shoes, put in the comments section of what that story was. I completely forgot what it was called. And then there was another job where elves can bake cookies inside a tree in the forest, which is obviously a jab at the Key Burrells, because the Key Burrells make cookies inside that tree. Another jab to that is that Papa Elf mentioned that they have trouble with dry season, to which the dry season in the forest can get burnt up. So basically, the tree got burnt up and all the elves were running away, which is obviously, like I said, that's a jab at the Keyboard elves. And then the third job is obviously making toys up in the North Pole, which is basically around Christmas time, because the elves are working with Santa Claus. And then he keeps going, and then Papa Elf keeps going about the North Pole, obviously saying that the North Pole is obviously the best place for elves to work at. Although there were definitely some minor issues where the elves try to use gnomes and trolls, although the gnomes drank too much, while the trolls, they weren't toilet trained. But Papa Elf keeps going, and then he would go on to tell the story of Buddy the Elf, right after a credit montage, because we get an opening credit montage, which pays homage to the Rankin Bass Christmas specials. And I know I already mentioned that already, but that's how this movie opens up. And it's a very good opening. It gives you that nostalgic vibe. Now it gives you that nostalgic vibe of the past Rankin Bass Christmas specials. But also, like, even after 20 years when this movie came out, it still gives you that nostalgic vibe. Like, especially with that opening credit scene. not just for Rankin Bass, but also for the movie itself, the entire movie as a whole, because the movie itself is nostalgic. Even after 20 years, this movie, Elf, holds up so well. It holds up so well. So right after the film's opening credits, we get a scene of the orphanage on Christmas Eve in 1973, where an orphaned baby crawls into Santa Claus's sack at the sight of a teddy bear and is unwittingly taken back to the North Pole from an orphanage. So basically, this is basically Buddy as a baby, and he crawls into Santa's sack. Although Santa didn't even realize that uh, the baby was inside the sack, and all the elves realize this, including Santa Claus himself. Santa Claus is being played by Edward Asner, who is very well known for playing obviously one of the roles I remember him from is Carl Fredricksen from Disney Pixar's Up. But yes, he has done other. But yes, Edward Asner has played other roles as well in early movies and the movies that came, the movies that came after Elf and Up. So so yes, I under so but the role of Santa Claus and Carl Fredricksen are the two only roles that I know. Oh, and Johnny. Oh, and Cobra Kai. He also played a role. He had a he appeared in 3 episodes of Cobra Kai. A few other appearances I know of, but still. So yes, Edward Asner plays Santa Claus in the movie Elf, and Edward Asner does a very good job. He does a very good job playing Santa Claus in the movie Elf. So Santa and the elves realize that the baby is at the North Pole. Even the elves realize this too. Like actually, the elves came up with the name Buddy. Like because they see like a some name tag on Buddy's diaper that says "Little Buddy Diapers," and one of the elves is like, "His name is Buddy. He must have snuck into your sack at the orphanage. What do we do?" So so Santa and the elves were thinking of what to do until Papa Elf, being played by Bob Newhart, comes in and decides to adopt Buddy as his adoptive father. So so Buddy is accepted by the elf community and grows up to adulthood believing he is an elf despite being twice the size of every other elf at, despite the size despite being twice the size of every other elf. I mean, it really says it. Like the montage sequence of Buddy growing up from being a child to an actual adult, like he's really he really develops it. Like even in one scene, like you see Buddy the elf in a classroom with all the other elves, with all the other child elves. They're just reciting the code of the elves, and and it's funny too. It's real funny because he's basically a giant elf in a room full of elves who are basically smaller, who are way smaller in size than Buddy the elf. And then during that time, Papa Elf was gonna make Buddy his apprentice for Santa's sleigh, to like operate Santa's sleigh. Well, I'm not ride Santa's sleigh, but like to operate, like to start. And then Buddy the Elf will be going into the toy making department, making toys, and he's having a hard time with it too because like he soon comes to realize that he doesn't think that he's a real elf, even though yeah he is an elf, but he's like not like an elf in size, like even one of I mean the elves realizes it too. Like they don't tell him that he's a human. He's a real life human, even though he's a real life human. Like like all the elves realize this too. Like it wasn't until all the elves realize this too. And of course like there one elf named Ming Ming, who's being played by Peter Billingsley, to which Peter Billingsley played Ralphie in A Christmas Story. Like he had a cameo in this movie. Like I mean, he doesn't tell Buddy that he thinks he. Well, actually, he talks to one of the elves that one of the elves tells Ming Ming if he doesn't think that he's a human by now, I don't know what will. Like one of the elves tells Ming Ming, being played by Billingsley, he tells him that if Buddy the elf doesn't think that he's a human by now, I don't know what will ever happen. And then we get another montage where we get a montage of Buddy the elf doing different activities. He was in the choir. Yeah, he's basically the baritone. Plays basketball, making all the baskets and free throws, and of course slam dunks. Like Buddy Elf playing basketball, slam dunking the elves. Oh my goodness! I want to imagine that. And then of course like having a hard time, and of course having a hard time falling asleep. But uh, but but this is when he literally comes to realize that too. Like he eavesdrops in on that conversation. Like he listens to a conversation of Ming Ming and another elf, and then he starts feeling sick, and then one of the elves came over and says, "Buddy, you don't feel good. Are you okay?" And then Buddy's like, "Yeah, I just need a drink of water." And then Buddy faints, lands on top of the other elf, and then Buddy just runs back to his elf home, and then he sits alone in the bathroom until Papa Elf shows up, and then Papa Elf has a conversation with Buddy the elf, like like he tells Buddy that Buddy is an actual human who left the orphanage as a baby and then got sent up to the North Pole. He even tells him that he has a biological father. He tells him that his real parent that he has a biological father named Walter Hobbs, who's being played by James Caan. And Walter Hobbs, Walter Hobbs, and his his wife. Susan, I believe Walter's original wife was Susan Wells. Susan Wells was Walter Hobbs's original wife, and it turns out that that Susan put that it turns out that Susan Wells put Buddy up for adoption prior to her death, and Walter is the executive vice president at Greenway Press, which is a book publishing company at the Empire State Building in New York City, and Walter Hobbs is unaware of Buddy's existence. So Walter Hobbs doesn't realize that he has a son. Like and and to add insult to injury, Walter Hobbs is on the naughty list due to his selfishness. Like Walter Hobbs is is basically selfish. He cares more about his job rather than his family. Like I'm pretty sure that's a thing in most Christmas specials too. You know, like in Christmas Carol, where Ebenezer Scrooge cares more about his job and of course the money. I mean, obviously, yeah, sure, yes, that's true. I mean, you definitely need a living, but the thing is, it can't be too greedy. Otherwise, the greedy selfishness path that person's gonna go on will not be good for the rest of the life. Like Walter cares more about Walter's pretty greedy. Well, I wouldn't say he's not. I mean, he's not as greedy as Scrooge, but he cares more about his work than his actual family. And and then Santa and then of course, but Santa suggests to Buddy that Buddy could help redeem his father with some Christmas spirit, and that's true. Like everybody's gonna need a little spirit. A little Christmas spirit helps along the way to cheer things up. Realize that hey, Christmas is Christmas is definitely one of the most important times of the year. Like to not it's not just about presents, Christmas trees, or lights. It's about spending time with the family, and I think and I believe that's a good thing too, especially in this movie. Like Buddy really wants to like rekindle his wants to meet his father. So Buddy decides to travel to New York, and before he leaves, he says goodbye to Santa, Papa Elf, and then of course the different different characters, which is basically the stop motion characters that includes the Arctic Puffin, who the Arctic Puffin, a baby walrus, and then of course a polar bear cub. By the way, the Arctic Puffin and walrus are being voiced by Jon Favreau, and then the polar bear cub is being played by Ray Harryhausen. And another fun fact about Ray Harryhausen that Ray Harryhausen has also been involved with stop motion animation as well, most notably with Jason and the Argonauts, the original 1981 Clash of the Titans, and then and then and then the Sinbad, and then a few other movies as well. So and Ray Harryhausen has been, as I mentioned, he's been involved in stop motion animation. So that is another callback because when I saw this movie, obviously Ray Bass specials, but also Ray Harryhausen as well. So that's also a good callback as well because Ray Harryhausen has done stop motion animation as well. Oh, there's even there's even Mr. Narwhal, to which Jon Favreau also played, and Mr. Narwhal was like, "Bye, buddy. Hope you find your dad." Then Buddy was like, Thanks, Mr. Narwhal. Bye." Um, yeah. Oh man. But anyway, moving forward, like Buddy travels, like Buddy continues his adventure. Like he was traveling on water, which is based traveling on water on that ice float, which is basically a call back to Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer, when Rudolph was traveling on that ice raft to go back to his home, and then he walks through the Candy Cane Forest, and then through the mountains until then he went under the Lincoln Tunnel, and he arrives at New York City. And he gets into a fight with a raccoon. Yes, Buddy the Elf gets into a bit of a brawl with a raccoon. I hope it's not Rocket Raccoon because I hope it's not Rocket Raccoon. I mean, obviously, even though this was Jon Favreau before he stepped into the Marvel universe. By the way, just to let you all know, this is before the Marvel Cinematic Universe. Just to let you all know, okay? And I mean, because obviously, because Raccoon, I mean, could be Rocket Raccoon, could be an early version of Rocket Raccoon. Just realizing a strange elf is like, who is this guy? Who the hell is this guy? Why is that guy dressed up like an elf? Why should I hug this elf? Like Buddy was gonna hug this raccoon. This raccoon jumps up at Buddy's like, screw this guy. And then Buddy's like, I just wanted a hug. But it's a pretty funny moment. But anyway, Buddy arrives at New York, and he starts to realize that New York is different than the North Pole. And even before Buddy left, like Santa warns Buddy that if you see gum on the street, leave it. It's not free candy. Unfortunately, Buddy eats the gum off the off the streets, and then he tries to meet new people. Although and then he goes into a coffee shop, realizes that the coffee shop is basically the world's best cup of coffee, and it's pretty funny too. It's pretty funny, and then he enjoys a little joyride spinning around those spinning doors. You know those spinning doors that they spin around to enter and exit. Yeah, that's one of those doors, and Buddy threw up after that. And then he even thought Santa was there too, although it wasn't really Santa because there was a guy all dressed in red, had a beard, was walking across the street, and then Buddy thought the guy was Santa, although it wasn't Santa. And then Buddy ends up at the Empire State Building where he was gonna go up to see his father Walter, Although he does succeed getting up there. I mean, he even had to take an elevator trip up there and press all the buttons until he meets up with one of Walter's assistants, or one of Walter's assistants or secretary named Deb, who's being played by Amy Sedaris. And um, and then Deb was surprised to meet Buddy, and she was surprised. She was happy to see an actual human elf. Although Walter was not impressed because Walter doesn't realize that he had a son. So Walter mistakes Buddy for a Christmas gram, which is basically a message that is delivered by an artist in musical form, which is basically a singing telegram. And Buddy sings, and it's a pretty sweet song. Like he's just basically singing, singing to his biological father, like that he's here, he found him, and he loves him. But Walter's like, huh, well that's something. And Walter Hobbs is being played by James Caan, by the way, just to let you all know. uh, but unfortunately, Walter's security ejects him from the building and tells Buddy to go to Gimbel's department store, and he goes to the department store to check out the place, and he gets and then he is being spotted by by the manager of Gimbel's, who tells him to get back to work. He mistakes Buddy for for an employee. He thought Buddy was an actual employee, but that turned out to be not true, because I mean he doesn't know that he doesn't. I mean Buddy doesn't know that, but but Buddy, filled full of Christmas spirit, like Buddy is happy, while the manager not so much. But the manager takes Buddy over to the North Pole section, even though Buddy doesn't think it's the North Pole, and then Buddy starts to smile. He smiles at the manager, and the manager's like, "What are you doing?" And then Buddy's like, "I just like to smile. Smiling's my favorite." And then the manager says, "Make work your favorite." Another classic line. And then the manager tells all the customers in at Gimbel's department store, saying, "All right, folks, 10 a.m. Santa Claus is coming to town." And then Buddy reacts, and then Buddy says probably one of the most famous moments in this film is basically, "Santa! Oh my God! I know him! I know him!" I mean, come on, like when Buddy heard that, he freaks out. Like he realizes that Santa is coming to town. It's a funny moment. It's a fun moment too. Plus, another moment is when he meets Joby for the first time. Like he meets Joby, who's being played by Deschanel, who is an unenthusiastic employee with whom he is instantly smitten. And then Buddy strikes a conversation with her. Like Buddy starts a conversation with her, and it's a pretty nice moment. Like it seems as though Joey's realizing what Buddy's trying to do. Joey's like, "Who is this guy?" And then Buddy just like keeps on talking and talking, and then Buddy starts singing. "I'm singing, I'm in the store, I'm singing, I'm in the store, and I'm singing." Hey, there's no singing in the North Pole. Yes, there is. No, there's not. We sing all the time. Oh my goodness. I mean, oh, this movie's so good. This movie's so good. Buddy stays at the department store for an entire night just to decorate things a bit, make it more festive. Like it's actually the North Pole. He uses Legos. He takes out pillow stuffings from pillows to just to like make it as it was snow on top of the roofs. And of course, gingerbread houses as well. And then setting up. I mean, setting up for Santa's arrival. And then of course we get a scene where Walter is at home with his new wife and his son, like his new wife is Emily Hobbs, who's being played by Mary Steenburgen. You may remember Mary Steenburgen from Back to the Future Part 3 playing Clara. Of course, Walter's son, Michael Hobbs, is being played by Daniel Tay, who is Walter and Emily's son, and of course, Buddy's younger paternal half brother. So, just to move forward. So Walter, so for a moment, like Walter takes his dinner to his room to work on other things, but also look at an old picture from his yearbook because because Buddy revealed to Walter that Susan Wells Susan Wells was like his first Susan Wells was Walter's first wife, and Susan Wells like gave Buddy up for adoption before she passed away. And then like this does strike Walter a bit too because he's starting to like have like he's starting to like feel feel something for a second. Like he's starting to like come to realize he started to come to realization that Buddy is his biological son. He started to come to realize that a little bit. Like he has like this feeling, so he's starting to come to his realization a little bit. Although although he does come to realize that more and more later on in the movie. But moving forward, Buddy slept overnight at Gimbel's, and then he hears someone singing in the bathroom. Like, and I'm just like, oh boy, Buddy. Like, here's the thing, Buddy doesn't know. I mean, Buddy realizes that it's Joby who's in the bathroom singing because it turns out Joby's apartment like her water at the apartment stopped running, and which is basically like the water for the kitchen, for the sinks and the showers at her apartment. It stopped running. It got shut down. It got shut down in her apartment, which is probably explains why she went to Gimbel's shower in that moment. But she's singing "Baby It's Cold Outside," and Buddy the Elf also sings along to it too. But here's the thing, Buddy, let's be honest. I mean, it's a bit of a creepy scene. I mean, sure, yes, it's it's an awkward scene, but knowing the fact that Buddy's new is basically new to this to all of this because Buddy's been raised by elves up in the North Pole. He doesn't realize like he doesn't know much about the human world, the human world. So he doesn't realize that. And then of course, yes, he gets a reality check. He gets a reality check after Joby hears Buddy's voice, and then Joby tells Buddy to get out because obviously he's in the women's locker room. He's in the women's locker room. That's where he's at. I mean, Buddy gets knocked out for a second, and then he sleeps in one of those like window cells, those like window cells that you see, like those like window displays, where like, he sleeps in one of those window displays for probably about 45 minutes because Buddy Elf joke mentioned that he had a full 45 minutes of sleep in another scene later, but um but still, but even Walter Hobbs sees Buddy sleeping at this window display, and then Buddy was like, "Hey, it's my dad," and then Walter's like, "Hi," and then he leaves. So later on, Buddy is back. Buddy and all the other customers are basically back at Gimbel's, and then he sees Jovi again, and Jovi's like, "Hey, you, I want to talk to you." Like Jovi tells Buddy, "Why were you in the women's locker room this morning?" And then because Buddy says, "I heard you sing," and then Joey says, well, you didn't realize that it's the women's locker room, not the men's locker room." I mean, she says a few other things, but you know, but you know. And then Joey's like, huh. Joey's like pretty impressed with the place that Buddy put together, and even the manager too, even though the manager thought that it was too good. But but hey, you know. Buddy does give Jovi a good compliment, saying that Jovi's got a good singing voice, and it's true. Jovi has a very good singing voice. And another fun fact is that Zoe Deschanel's singing was not in the original script, and Jon Favreau added it when he learned she was a singer. And that's true. Zoe Deschanel is an actual singer. Plus, Zoe Deschanel is an actual singer, and that's true. Yeah, and that's when Buddy starts singing in the middle of Santa Land at Gimbals, and the lyrics were not scripted. That's when the lyrics were not scripted, and Will Ferrell improvised the song on the spot. So yes, so yes, yes, so yes, Will Ferrell did some improvisation. That was early on in the movie too, when Buddy was at Gimbals for the first time. But unfortunately, Buddy does get into a little bit of trouble when he finds out that Gimbal Santa is not the real deal because because Buddy thought the real Santa Claus was going to be there, but no, it's not the real Santa Claus. It's just some guy pretending to be Santa Claus, and Buddy was like, "Who the hell are you?" The fake Santa was like, "Oh, I'm Santa Claus." And then one of the most ridiculous questions I've heard from this movie is probably it's not only ridiculous but memorable too. Is when Buddy says, "Well, if you're him, then what song did I sing for you on your birthday this year?" And then the Santa was like, "Well, happy birthday, of course." Oh my goodness, this movie's so good. This movie's so good. Okay, okay. So basically, Buddy finds out that this is a fake Santa Claus because the fake Santa Claus sits on the throne of lies, and he fights the guy, but unfortunately, Buddy gets arrested. But Buddy, the manager, but unfortunately, the manager breaks up the fight, and then Buddy gets arrested later on, and he was able to make one phone call to none other than Walter Hobbs, who reluctantly bails Buddy out of the police station and takes him in for a DNA test. And the doctor who does the DNA test is Jon Favreau, who who does like this little finger prick, like those like little finger pricks, like for it's like one of those like blood tests where you get like a little finger prick, and and then like the doctor takes a little bit of that blood just to like test it out, just like test it out a little bit, something like that, if you know what I'm saying. But this is like a DNA sample, but this is like a little DNA test that the doctor is doing just so the doctor and Walter just so the doctor and Walter will know that Buddy is the biological son to Walter Hobbs. And it confirms, and it really confirms too. But even before that, Buddy eats some cotton balls, which is pretty funny, and then he screams after he gets pricked in the finger. And another little fun fact too, like James Caan actually broke character during the moment when Buddy screamed. Like you can almost like like he turns his head away because he actually almost cracked up, because when Will Ferrell screamed, like James Caan was cracking up. It was funny. It was funny. It was a funny moment until it cuts to Buddy sitting in the waiting room, getting his finger healed up with a cotton ball. Oh, it's so funny. And then once Walter realizes that Buddy is his son, like he couldn't believe his eyes, because like Walter knows that Buddy is insane, but the doctor is like he's probably has those like childlike episodes that he's still doing. Like he's basically acting like a kid. Basically, if you know what I'm saying, like Buddy the Elf is basically acting like a kid, even though yes, he was an actual man raised by elves. So just to say, like like that's probably why the doctor is like saying like he's probably still has the he's probably still in that state of childlike episodes, and the doctor um convinces Walter to take Buddy home to meet his stepmother, Emily, and his half brother, Michael. And Buddy's strange behavior annoys Walter and Michael, but Emily insists that they take care of him until he recovers. And what I mean by recover is basically come to a realization that, you know, come to a realization that he is an actual human. Like, adapting the human world, if you know what I'm saying. As a normal human being, like Buddy has dinner with his now family, and he drinks an entire liter of Coca-Cola, and then and then has spaghetti with syrup, and and then he makes a super loud burp, which annoys Michael. And I also found out that Buddy's belch after drinking a 2 liter bottle of Coca Cola was dubbed by a voice actor Maurice LaMarche, and and it's a very funny moment too. Like, it's funny. Like some of these fun facts in this movie, like you don't even realize. Like there are moments in this movie you don't even realize that like it's improvised, it's dubbed, like it's not written in the script. Like Buddy's belch, basically him burping, was dubbed by voice actor Maurice LaMarche. And the singing that Buddy did was improvised. Oh my goodness. Like there are moments where this film was off script, but still. So Bunny the elf sleeps for the night, and he wakes up the next morning. Like he wakes up the next morning, like he makes leftover spaghetti for breakfast. Can't imagine spaghetti for breakfast. I mean, that's actually sounds pretty interesting. Like, and Buddy's stepmom tries it, and she likes it. She asks if Buddy had a good night's sleep, and Buddy's like, "Yeah, I did. I got a 4:45. I got a full 45 minutes, and I had enough time to build that rocking horse." Yeah. I can't imagine. I mean, I don't know if that's the sleep time for elves, but don't quote me on that. But I mean, don't quote me on that. I don't know. I don't know if that's how elves sleep during the night, but still, but you kind of get the gist. I mean, you kind of get the gist. I guess everybody has different sleeping hours. So yeah. Buddy's parents leave for work, and then Buddy's at the house. As Buddy's at the apartment, which is basically the apartment where Walter, Emily, where Walter, Emily, and Michael are living. Like he's basically up in the place alone. Like he's basically eating a dessert, spaghetti dessert. Like he mixed like Pop Tarts, marshmallows, sprinkles, chocolate syrup. Oh my goodness. Uh, I mean, for an elf like Buddy, he likes it because for the elves, it's revealed by Buddy that the elves stick to the four main groups: candy, candy canes, candy corns, syrup. But then later on, we get a scene where Walter meets up with his actual boss, Fulton Greenway, the CEO of Greenway Press, who is not impressed with Walter's story that he had, because it turns out that the story he had is basically sloppy, and then the numbers came in with a very low rating, which is basically a -8 for the company, and he was like, -8, that does not happen. And then Walter comes to realize this too, and then Fulton Fulton wanted Walter to pitch in a new book for the first quarter, and then Fulton was going to be back in town on the 24th, which is Christmas Eve, and to hear about this new book idea. And then Walter was like, wait a minute, sir, that's Christmas Eve. And then Fulton was like, and then Walter was like, No problem. Okay, this is another realization where Walter was like, wait, I mean, that's impossible. Why are we doing this on Christmas Eve? It's Christmas Eve. Like, now, this is like where Walter starts to realize this too. Like Walter can't believe that Fulton was going to come back and to come back on Christmas Eve to talk more about this book. I mean, sure, yeah, I know there's going to be people who work on Christmas Eve, but Walter, I guess you could say that Walter starts to realize more and more that he should care more about his family than work. But he goes back to that whole work thing when Fulton was like, and then Walter was like, well, no problem. He confirmed that he can do it, that he could do this pitch with Fulton on Christmas Eve. And then later on, Buddy waits for Michael the entire day because Michael walks out of school, and then Buddy annoys Michael for a little while until a snowball fight, a snowball fight happens, and let's be honest. And then let's be honest, Buddy knows how to snowball fight. Like, he takes out the bullies one by one with his firepower, with his snow power snowballs. Like, he shoots them like a machine gun, and he nails them all one by one until one guy remains, and he throws a snowball so far and almost sounds like a bomb that is falling, and then it hits the guy from behind and knocks him out. It's like, what the hell is that? And then Michael's like, where did you say you were from? Because Buddy's from the North Pole. So Buddy and Michael go to Gimbel's to have fun, and then he meets up at the Santa's workshop for at Gimbel's, where he sees Joby again, and Joby's surprised too. Joby surprised that Buddy is here, even though Buddy and the manager are basically on a no contact zone, basically a restraining order of some sort. And Joby and Buddy start to have a little conversation, and Buddy asks Joby out on a date, and it works, and it's actually a very nice moment because Buddy was showing Joby around of what he's been doing, basically having Joby drink this coffee from this coffee joint, basically called the world's best cup of coffee. And Joby's like, it tastes like a crappy cup of coffee. It is a crappy cup of coffee. And then Buddy's like, no, it's the world's best cup of coffee. And then Buddy just basically goes into that spinning door again, and Joby's literally laughing. It's basically so funny. and then um, and then Buddy and Joby check out different Christmas trees. With the last Christmas tree being at Rockefeller Center, one of the biggest Christmas trees you ever seen at Rockefeller Center. Like, really beautiful, beautiful Christmas tree at the Rockefeller Center. And what's also amazing too is that there's this ice rink too, which Jovi and Buddy go ice skating, and Jovi and Buddy having a wonderful time. Although Walter doesn't really think that too. He thinks that Buddy is basically insane. Yeah, basically Buddy's insane. That's what Walter thinks. And then Walter's wife gave Walter an idea to not, like take Buddy to work, and Walter does. He takes Buddy to work, and he actually sends Buddy down to the mail room. You know, the mail all the envelopes and packages. You know, kind of like similar to Santa's workshop, although the only difference is it's much gloomy than Santa's workshop, and Buddy seems to enjoy it. He meets up with this one employee who's basically 26 years old, and he starts to become friends with. He accidentally drank his liquor with coffee, to which he thought it was syrup. He starts hanging out with him, and then he goes in. And then he decides to have a musical number with all the other employees down in this mail room. It's just so funny. And then upstairs, Walter and his co-workers, Eugene and Morris, like Eugene's being played by Kyle Gass of Tenacious D, and then Annie Richter, comedian Annie Richter, who played Mort in the Madagascar films. He meets this author who's a best-selling who's basically a best-selling children's author named Miles Finch, and they named Miles Finch, and the co-workers even joked to saying that he has written more books than Dr. Seuss, which I'm gonna be honest with you. I mean, it's a movie, I get it, but it's a movie, I get it, but that sounds so biased. But you know, it's a movie. You gotta expand your disbelief, but still, it's a funny moment. And Miles Finch is being played by Peter Dinklage, and Buddy the Elf like comes interrupts the meeting and mistakes Finch, who has dwarfism, and he thinks that Finch and his dwarfism size, like he thinks Finch is an actual elf. Oh my goodness! Like 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 Buddy mistakes Finch for an actual elf. Like he thinks like he keeps asking questions like, does Santa know that you're here? Did you have to borrow a reindeer to get here? And then Finch was like, hey, Jackweed, I get more action in a week than you have ever had. I have houses in LA, Paris, and many other locations throughout the world. Each one of them has each one of them has a 70-inch plasma screen TV. So I suggest you wipe that stupid smile off your face before I come over there and smack it off. Feeling strong, my friend? Call me Elf one more time. You can definitely tell that Miles Finch is he's very offended at this point. Like at one point, like he's like he just shakes it off. At one point, like he thinks Buddy was being funny, but once Buddy keeps on going, thinking that Miles is like and Miles Finch is an actual elf, like he loses his temper and just like goes off on Buddy. Like he literally threatens Buddy to call Miles Finch elf one more time, and Buddy says he's an angry elf. And then Miles Finch is like, "That's it." He runs on the table and he just drop kicked on Buddy, and Buddy was like, "Ow!" Like Buddy's Buddy's been in a snowball fight, but he's never done a hand-to-hand combat with a guy who is smaller than him. Like oh my goodness, this is a funny this is a funny scene. And then Miles Finch just like he throws him on the table too, and he threatens Buddy again to call him Elf one more time. He's like, "Call me Elf one more time. Call me Elf." And then Buddy just says, "You're an elf." Then Miles just like rolls him off the table and just like tosses him to the ground, and a picture frame just comes off as well. And then Miles Finch was like, screw this, I'm getting out of here. He leaves the office with his jacket, and I'm pretty sure the money that Walter gave him as well, because Miles Finch, I'm pretty sure Miles Finch got paid for this too, because Walter called Miles Finch to come on over to talk about like to come up with a new book idea to pitch a new book idea. But unfortunately, with Miles Finch gone, there's no luck. There's no luck for Walter right there. And then unfortunately, once Miles Finch leaves, Buddy throws in this one liner. Must be a South Pole elf. Oof. Oof. Ooh. Okay, buddy. Okay, buddy. And then Walter loses his temper on Buddy too, because Walter just lost the guy who's going to help Walter to write a new book, to help come up with a new idea for his book, for a book. And then Walter disowns his own biological son, because he tells Buddy, I don't care where you go. I don't care if you're an elf. I don't care if you're nuts. I don't even care that you're my son. He literally straight up tells that to Buddy, his own biological son that he hasn't seen since 1973. Like literally, he literally tells Buddy he literally disowns Buddy and tells him to leave. Buddy, who is so heartbroken, he writes an apology note on an etch-a-sketch and leaves Walter's apartment. And then Walter feels at this point. Walter's like done. Like he stays at his office throughout the rest of the night too, and he lost his temper. So right now he's trying to cool himself. He's trying to cool himself down. He's trying to calm himself down. e- from all of this madness that is going on. Like he realized what he has done. Like he completely disowns his own son. Like I said, like he focuses more on work rather than like his own family right who is standing right there. Like his he completely he completely focuses more on his work rather than his son. Like his own biological son was right there, and he completely disowns him and tells him to leave. That is really sad. And then later on, as Walter's trying to calm himself down, some of his coworkers came in with Miles's notebook. Like Miles's notebook is full of genius ideas, and this gets Walter to cheer up a little bit. It sounds like he's actually like like Walt like Miles's notebook is full of ideas, and Walter and his team scrambled to create a book to pitch. So like a book idea to pitch, and once Walter prepares to pitch his book to Greenway, his son Michael arrives and informs Walter of Buddy's departure, and Walter wasn't gonna at first. Walter rejects his son's offer at first, but his son just tells his son tells him like Buddy cares about everybody, and all you care about is yourself. Like Walter cares more about himself rather than like his family, and this is where Walter literally snaps out of it, realizing his mistake, and he asks he asks the CEO Fulton. He asks the CEO to he asks politely to his boss that to he asked his boss if we can if they can reschedule the pitch. But Fulton's like, we don't have time to reschedule. We don't have time to reschedule. I want to hear the damn thing now. Fulton is very impatient, and he's counting on Walter Hobbs to pitch this book idea, but Walter desperately asks his boss, like, look, can we do it another time? But Fulton threatens Walter, saying like, if you want to keep your job, you gonna pitch me this book. And then Walter is like, well, screw you, up yours. So Walter just quits. He walks out of his job. He just quits. Walt's son Michael even said the same thing too. He says, "Yeah, up yours." So Michael and Walt leave the office to go find Buddy, who is walking around town until he sees Santa Claus crashing into crashing into Central Park, attracting a large crowd. Santa explains that the sleigh's engine is lost and cannot fly without Christmas spirit the engine because it can't fly because the sleigh can't fly without Christmas spirit plus the engine as well. So there's two things going on. You got the Christmas spirit and the engine that helps move Santa's sleigh. Well, plus the reindeers too. I mean, you gotta have the reindeers as well. But he finally sees Santa, the real Santa, not the Santa that sat on the throne of lies at Gimbals, but but he's happy to see Santa, and Santa's happy as well. Santa orders Buddy to go find the engine, and at first Buddy rejects the offer, but Santa's like, Buddy, you are more than enough than I can ever imagine. Now go find that engine, go help save Christmas. Go, Mr. Elf. Like Buddy walks around the park just to find the engine, until then until the engine was found by Walter and Michael, and Buddy was like, "Hey, you found it!" And Michael was excited to see Buddy, and then Walter, at first uncomfortable at first, but he and Buddy rekindle and reconcile with each other. Buddy was like, "I have something to tell you," but Walter was like, "Buddy, there's something I need to tell you right now." Like Walter apologizes to Buddy, like he didn't mean for what he said. He didn't mean for what he said. Like he was he was caring more about himself rather than what's right in front of him, his family. And he apologized to Buddy, and he tells him that Walter loves his son Buddy. And both Buddy and Walter hug each other. So he finally accepts Buddy, like Walter finally accepts Buddy as his son. And and from there on, Buddy takes Michael and his father Walter to meet Santa. And during that time, Michael takes a look at Santa's list. He realizes that he takes Santa's list to one of the news reporters who's reporting on the story of Santa's sleigh crashing, even though the news reporter doesn't seem to believe it at first, but some of the kids thought one of the kids thought it was Santa's sleigh, which is true, which is real true. And then of course Jovi sees it all too. Like Jovi saw Buddy on TV walking into Central Park looking for Santa in that engine. Although the news story says there seems to be a stranger dressed as an elf walking into Central Park. And then Jovi's like, "Oh my goodness!" So Jovi leaves her apartment and goes out and finds Michael, who is like naming off the list of people who wanted gifts for Christmas. And then the news reporter cut the story off, like she doesn't want to she this news reporter doesn't want to hear any of this. Like this news reporter was like, "No, can we cut, please? Can we cut to black?" Like the whole the whole story cuts to black, and Michael's like, "Hey, turn the cameras back on." But the news reporter denies, leaves, and then Jovi and Michael's mom shows up too, and Michael tells them both. Michael tells them both that that Santa's in the park. Santa's sleigh couldn't fly because there's no Christmas spirit. So this gives Jovi an idea to sing, because the quote that the quote that Buddy said is and this was also mentioned at the beginning of the movie too, because one of the codes of the elves is the best way to spread Christmas cheer is singing loud for all to hear. And Jovi remembers Buddy saying that to her at Gimbals in the movie, so she decides to sing "Santa Claus is Coming to Town," raising enough Christmas spirit to fully power the sleigh without the engine. Now, just to give it more context, like Santa has another problem too, because there are Central Park Rangers coming after Santa, because Santa put the park rangers on the naughty list because they were angry at Santa for they were angry for placing Santa on the naughty list. And the the park rangers are chasing the sleigh as Buddy tries to reattach the engine, although he successfully does that, but unfortunately the engine comes off after a first attempt at flying, which hits a fountain. The engine is gone, and there's only a little bit of Christmas spirit left. Probably about halfway through, I guess, from my point of view. So everybody starts singing along to "Santa Claus is Coming to Town." Even Walter himself, like Walter was the last man standing to bring in Christmas spirit. So he was the last man standing, and he does it with his wife and son Michael. And he sings the last few lyrics, and it was enough to send the Christmas spirit power to 100%, just so the sleigh can fly. And from that point, Buddy and Santa are heading back to the North Pole. And of course, that was the adventure right there. So, by the following Christmas, Buddy writes a book about his life, which became a bestseller that allows Walter to establish his own publishing company. And of course, the book was Elf, which was written by Buddy himself, and he reads it to he reads it to kids at a what I'm pretty sure is a bookstore, I believe it is. Which I'm pretty sure is a book. He reads it to a bunch of kids at a bookstore, and it's a beautiful story. It's a very beautiful story. And then, of course, Buddy also got Buddy and his family all celebrate Christmas, opening gifts. Jovi even sings while Walter plays piano, which he does a good job, by the way. He really knows how to play piano. And Buddy gets a Christmas gift of maple syrup, and it's just so funny. It's so funny. It's just so funny. It's so funny and cute too. Like he finally got maple syrup. And then of course, Buddy marries Jovi and brings their newborn daughter Susie to visit Papa Elf. And and that's basically it. And that's the end of the movie. That's the end of Elf. And that's really it. That's the end of Elf. That's how the movie ends. So so anyway, that's the end of the movie. And I gotta be honest with you, like I still love this movie. While it's not the best Christmas movie, but it is one of the best Christmas movies out there. And this movie really holds up. Like Will Ferrell does an amazing job playing Buddy the Elf, and many people are going to remember Will Ferrell for his role of Buddy the Elf. And sure, yes, he has done other movie and TV roles as well. And of course, this was him coming off of Saturday Night Live as well. So at the very least, he knew what he knew what he was doing. Jon Favreau did a fantastic job directing this movie too. I mean, I can't believe this movie was going to have a darker tone, but I'm glad there were changes made to make it more lighthearted and fun too. Like there are Christmas movies where they do go for a darker tone, like like a Christmas Carol, and then probably a few other Christmas stories as well. But even some of those films, they do have a happy ending in some of those films where they do have a darker tone, but but at the very least there is a silver lining at the end. But this one, on the other hand, it was lighthearted. It was lighthearted. It was fun and fun. It was lighthearted. It was fun and of course memorable to watch as well. Like the cast did a very good job. James Caan did a good job too. Everybody involved in this movie did a fantastic job. The story was fun. The story was fun. The direction was good. I mean, I love like some of this. I love some of the callback. I love some of the callbacks to the Rankin Bass Christmas specials. Most notably in the beginning of the movie, particularly like with the stop motion animation sequences, and that's pretty. And that's pretty good. And that's pretty good. I mean, there's not much to say. There's not much to say. And I'm just gonna say this. I believe Elf is still one of the best Christmas movies out there. So anyway, that's a wrap on this episode. So to ask all of you who are listening to this episode, what did you guys think of the movie Elf? Did you like the movie? Did you not like the movie? Did you thought the movie was okay? I would like to hear your thoughts on this. So anyway, that's a wrap on this episode. And Codo Cinema Christmas Month has just begun. So thank you all for tuning in to Codo Cinema. I'm your host Mark Codo, aka Codoman. Remember to watch movies and stay positive.